Cities across America force law-abiding citizens into curfew as rioters and looters burn and smash. Protesters watch their cause undermined by violent hangers-on.
But I'm literally looking at my neighbors now and going, I'm ready to hang them up, gut them, and skin them, and chop them up. You know what? I'm ready. My daughters aren't starving to death. I'll eat my neighbors. Good morning. Why are you gay?
Who says I'm gay?
You are gay.
Glenn Beck will have his own chapter as possibly the greatest synthesizer of big ideas ever to appear on camera.
There are dozens of videos and photos of Obama having flies land on him indoors at all times of year, and he'll be next to 100 people and no one has flies on him.
Does anyone have a question for Santa Claus?
Santa, do you have to wear a mask?
When I'm in my workshop with all my elves, we all are masked up and social distancing.
The growing calls across the nation to defund the police.
To end policing as we know it.
Off the charts violence in New York City. 11 people shot in just 8 hours on Sunday.
This is about the police officers who every single day put on that uniform and they run towards danger when we run away from it.
God, stop, giddy up. Welcome to Failure to Stop Last Call, the #1 show where police meet society and culture. If you're tuning in for the very first time on the Failure to Stop Podcast Network, we are a podcast channel, one of the first podcast channels in existence that covers 5 different shows a week, all geared to keep first responders entertained, awake, and alert all through the week, bringing you every Monday police-related news with former cop and comedian J. Darrell White. We have True Crime Tuesday nights with the beautiful and audacious Andrea Up Late. And then we have this show every Wednesday live to our YouTube viewers and then goes out publicly on audio on Thursday. This show is called Last Call, bringing you all the news that you need so that you don't sound like an ignoramus to your civilian friends all weekend long. Most first responders don't like the news. They won't watch mainstream media, but you gotta be well-rounded to fit in. And that's where we come in. We break it all down for you, Big Birthday Cookie Monster style, so you understand a little bit what's going on around the world. Listen, I'm not a journalist, and I don't claim to be, so I'm only going to give you the talking points. It's up to you to do the fact-checking, although I think we do a pretty good fact-checking. Speaking of which, I'm here with my co-host and fact checker extraordinaire for the Fair to Stop channel and all that social media and all of its shows, Deadleg from Deadleg Media. We no longer refer to him by his first name. Anybody that calls him by his first name will end up like the NBC reporters in Crimea, where you will just be sent to the gulag. You'll be annexed to your hotel forever because we don't want the propaganda here. His name is Deadleg Media, and that's what you'll refer to him as. But we do give you all the talking points so that you know what's going on in the world a little bit. Is that so bad? Is that so much for the world to ask of its police officers that you have something? What if you are interviewing somebody sitting on the ground? You got to have something to talk about, relate to something. Maybe he's a golfer. Maybe he's one of those drunk golfers that had too many fireball shots on the golf course. And you've got him pulled over on the side of the road. You're trying to make small talk while you're waiting on the PBT results to come back. Gives you something to talk about other than dead babies and domestic violence. Today's show is brought to you by ghostbed.com/Wolfpack. And guess who's back for June? Deadleg, guess who's back?
Who?
Manscaped, baby. Manscaped.com/Wolfpack. Getting you all those savings, getting you a little free shipping. Listen, you think this baby face right here just comes naturally? No, it doesn't. Maybe it comes from because I manscaped. You should see my pubes. You should see my prepubescent looking wiener. Doesn't even look like I ever touched puberty. Manscaped works so well. It's got me looking fresh. It's got me looking like an 18-year-old boy down there. Which my wife may or may not be into. We don't kink shame on this show. I guess probably a more appropriate example would be, how do you think Ted Leg's mustache looks so nice? It's because he uses Manscaped. He uses the beard trimmer. You don't see any nose hairs on this 4K camera, this Canon X810 4K camera that's sitting in front of me. You know why I don't see any nose hairs? It's because I use the Manscaped weed whacker. Gets up in there. I got the Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0. It's got the new LED light, so I can mow my yard at night if I want to. I'm happy that Manscaped's back, and I'm always glad that we have ghostbed.com. Listen, until health starts, good night's sleep. That's why we at ghostbed.com. We're proud to partner with them. One of the only bed companies that fully supports law enforcement and military veterans. They've been with us since day one. We couldn't be prouder. Their beds made in the good old USA. USA. Do you know why my wife has our children at home and not in the hospital? Illegally has them at home because it's illegal to have a home birth in North Carolina unless you've got an approved doctor. There's only like 6 in the state. And we're too poor to afford one of those. So we do it illegally in our living room. Do you know why she chooses to go that route?
Because you have a ghost bed?
Because she doesn't want to sleep in a hospital bed. She'd rather sleep in a ghost bed. She would rather risk the lives of our unborn children so that she can get a good night's rest on a ghost bed. It's purely selfish, but that's just how good these beds are. Maybe that's why they call them ghost bed. Because you'll never wake up.
Never wake up. You turn into a
that
ghost
might be the worst ad read I've ever done in my life. Listen, I had a huge weekend this weekend. We got a lot of news, and I promise you're going to get to it. Listen, a dam bomb blew up in Ukraine. Literally a dam bomb. They blew up a dam in the Ukraine, and tragic, actually, very tragic. I think it's being downplayed by the media, to be honest with you. I don't like to sensationalize news, and we're going to get into it in a few minutes, but I think this is a lot worse than what the news is putting out, and I'll tell you why. Also, we just got some more news about Nord Stream. If anybody remembers my very first rant, my off-the-cuff rant on Last Call, where I kind of blew up at you, Deadleg, but not you, for fact check stuff. And it all had to do with the Nord Stream pipeline. And now we're getting even more conflicting reports. And so that whole rant was fully justified. And I take all my apologies back. Everything that I said about you and your family and your parents and your unborn children, I meant all of it, because I was fucking right. We got a UFO whistleblower who says he has evidence that he wants to present to Congress. This is an Air Force, retired Air Force intelligence officer who has evidence that he wants to put out to Congress that there's actually recovered alien life forms from alien vehicles. We definitely cannot go without that. And then I also brought in a special guest for tonight, a former pro golfer on the PGA South America, has competed on the world. I don't know. I don't golf. What is it? What is the tournament thing that you played on, sir? It was the cup.com mini tour. Yeah, who knows? I don't know. He's got his name on a couple of plaques around some clubhouses. But I got him on to help us out with this whole golf thing that has blown up. Listen, it's the most interesting thing that's happened to golf in the last forever. Actually, nothing has ever exciting happened in golf except for Tiger Woods' wife teeing off on the windshield of his car. That was the last time anything great happened in golf until now. And we're going to have to get into that. But first, I had just the most epic weekend of my life. My children got to compete in a pro skateboarding event in Virginia Beach. It was the Jackalope Festival. First time it's ever been held in America. First time America's ever legalized base jumping. They had base jumping from a hotel, all in the same spot. A 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, I don't know how many millions of dollars. Concrete street skate park built on the sand that they destroyed right after the contest. A vert ramp. Tony Hawk was there. Bucky Lassick was there. All of just the legendary goats. Zach DiPaolo and motocross doing the backflips out there. I mean, it was just an epic weekend. And my children were VIPs. They were stars of the show. They got to meet Tony Hawk. They did several podcasts for their podcast, Grommet Vomit. They got to be on the microphone in front of thousands of people. They competed. My son made it to the finals in the street competition, and it was epic. Everywhere we went, kids wanted pictures with my children. They were talking about my kids on the announcing thing, saying the Grommet Vomit podcast boys are here. It was just a fantastic weekend. but the weekend would have been terrible had I not had my ghost bed pillow. And that's where I was going earlier with that ghost bed read. So in all fairness, seriously, I am a huge user of ghost beds and ghost bed pillows, the cooling sheets, the cooling technology, the adjustable base. I wouldn't have 5 kids if it wasn't for ghost bed. And that's just, that's just facts. So thank you to all of our sponsors. And if you want to support us, you can do that. You can also hit that like and subscribe button, subscribe to our channel. If you want to be a paid member on Patreon, we have breaking news. That can only I can only bring you this news if I have our faithful correspondent Pride Mike. So I have reached out to Pride Mike. There has been a transgender Portland, Oregon's premier transgender exclusive Anne Frank impersonator has been charged with murder. I have reached out to our correspondent Pride Mike to help me break that down. I'm waiting on his response. So far, he said that that he might be able to clear his schedule for that. So if you're a Patreon member, you may get to see this exclusive interview with Pride Mike before Fox News or CNN or anybody has had a chance to get a hold of him. He has promised that if he's going to do an interview before he goes on Fox or CNN or NBC, he will go on Failure to Stop on our Patreon to help us break that down. So you don't want to miss that. Let's jump into the news today. Before we jump into our guest, who I cannot wait to bring on, we have to talk about this damn bomb in Ukraine. Now, before I dive into this damn bomb in Ukraine, there's something I have to put out there. And that is, guys, don't listen to me. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to anybody, because nobody knows the truth of what's going on here. I don't think anybody knows the reality anymore. I think reality is a thing of the past. There's so much conflicting things. The hypocrisy in the news this week, even including this Gulf story that we're bringing to you, is just absolutely insane. But now we have Russia saying that Ukraine blew up their dam. We've got Ukraine saying that Russia blew up the dam. This dam is located just north of Crimea, on the heels of, and this was news that got squashed not too long ago, but NBC reporters had went into Crimea to see what was going on in Crimea, and they were met by just an overwhelming host of pro-Russians in Crimea. And the majority of the interviews that they were seeking, they couldn't find anybody that was pro-Ukraine in Crimea. So they actually reported on the just overwhelming number of pro-Russians in Crimea, to which the Ukrainian police came and detained these NBC reporters and then slapped them on the wrist and sent them, to their hotel rooms, where they were left there until further notice, no longer allowed to cover any news or do any journalism in Ukraine, because they reported that Crimea is predominantly pro-Russian. So that is a huge propaganda move. Listen, I remember when, by the way, the UK and everything talks about Russia and Russian propaganda, but the UK has arrested 4 times the amount of people for saying things on social media than Russia has. So hundreds and hundreds of more people have been arrested in the UK for saying things on social media versus Russia. We're not talking about any kind of threats. We're just talking about freedom of speech here. So the hypocrisy is hilarious going on here. So we're supposed to believe everything the Ukraine says, but that they go and do shit like this, where it's like, by the way, we're funding you. Like, us Americans are giving you, like, you wouldn't be in existence. You would not even be a country if it wasn't for us. And you're saying that our news people can't report on the news in the Ukraine, that NBC, a trusted mainstream, and I use air quotes there, trusted mainstream media source, can't report on what's really going on in Crimea, even though we're the ones that are funding your entire existence? Get the fuck out of here, Ukraine. So when I say this, listen, we talked about the Nord Stream pipeline and how I just went on a rage fit because it had come out in breaking bombshell mainstream news that 4 Navy SEALs blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. And I raged because nobody would ever know or be able to know if it was 4 Navy SEALs, 6 Navy SEALs, or anybody else, or a drone that blew up this pipeline. Yet they have a credible source that nobody can fact check or even know who this guy is, or even know. They just says trusted source, anonymous source. So, how come every bombshell breaking news, we don't get to know who the source is? It's absolutely crazy. And now we have that the Nord Stream, now the news is that the Ukrainians blew up Nord Stream and not 4 Navy SEALs. But I remember when I lost my mind when I thought the Navy SEALs blew up Nord Stream. And now they're saying Ukraine did it. So that whole rage and rant was there. But now we have Ukraine blaming Russia and Russia blaming Ukraine over a dam. The media has completely downplayed this dam, talking about flooding and some people having to move. And all the stories that they put in the news have all been very cheeky. They've been very cheeky stories. They're not very grim as I imagine it to be. The stories are, a Ukrainian woman lost in the chest-deep water looking for her lost dog. Okay, wow, that's sad. But that's only partially the truth, because if you just head upriver a few miles, there's going to be a lot of Ukrainian people looking for dead children, for dead grandmothers, for dead grandmas. So the fact that the main piece of news here are Ukrainians looking for lost pets is laughable to me, because I've seen a dam very similar to this. I was serving in Afghanistan near the Jalalabad province and the Jalalabad region of Afghanistan, and there was a dam there, the Jabad Dam, and we had talked. We had meetings back in early 2006, at the late 2005, about what would happen if this dam were to be blown up by the Chinese. I think is who we were afraid to do it, because we had recovered during a raid several brand new Chinese explosive devices. And so there was a raised threat that somebody, the Taliban, Pakistan, somebody might be trying to blow up this Jabad Dam. And I don't remember how much of that was classified at the time or not classified, but I remember standing on top of that dam and looking out at the sea of third world human beings at the base of this dam. And I thought to myself, if this thing cut loose, if somebody blew this thing up, tens of thousands of people would die instantly without even having a chance. And I can't even imagine how many tens of thousands of people would die downstream. I've looked at pictures of this dam and it doesn't look much different. So I would have to imagine that right up next to the dam, there has to be people living right there. Am I wrong on that? Have you seen much of what was on the other side of that dam before it cut loose? Because listen, that water is up there level with the dam right there. I bet you that dam had to be 40, 50, 60 feet tall, if not 100 feet tall. How big was that dam? Do you know?
Because even if, like, we're further downstream, you got to think everybody's displaced. And you got elderly people and children. There's the reporting that's going to come out of there is not going to, it's never going to paint the picture as bad as it actually is. The video, I don't have it pulled, but some of the video, this is a still image of it. It's an amazing the amount of volume of water that comes out in just a short amount of time. And people don't realize how powerful water is. You have this much moving water in one direction, it's just going to level anything. That first couple of miles, that first instant, like right there at the beginning, it's going to be gone. There's not going to be anything left, let alone how the flooding is going to be bad, but let alone the structures are going to be wiped from the earth. And we're talking about these places are in the other parts of the world don't have the same kind of building standards that we do in the United States. And it's not saying that they don't have standards. It's just not the same standards. So even in the United States, buildings are going to be washed from their foundations. It's going to be way worse than what they're reporting on, way worse than whatever is coming out.
Yeah. And it always makes me question, like, why? And this is why I don't believe any of the articles coming out of here, because the news is not being very transparent at all. Ukraine's not being very transparent at all. This all comes on the heels of some very hilarious articles. Speaking of hypocrisy, that's the theme of today's show is hypocrisy. But Ukrainians are defending an offensive, a spring offensive that we all knew was coming. Of course, that's being downplayed by the media as well. A lot of conflicting reports coming out of India and Russia. If you watch anybody from India covering the story, looks like Russia is absolutely dominating here. If you listen to mainstream American news or British news, it looks like it's almost like an equal battle here. But some of the pictures that have been posted in mainstream news have all been redacted in the last few weeks because all of the Ukrainian officers or several of the Ukrainian soldiers caught up in these photos are wearing Nazi symbolism all over their things. And not to say that Ukrainians are Nazis. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying Zelensky's a Nazi. But what I'm saying is that the news is covering this, and they had to backtrack because it was found out that one of these characters was actually wearing the skull with the crossbones that was worn by SS soldiers that were in charge of concentration camps. And so they had to retract, and they made an article that was almost, let me just kind of read this article for you really quickly. Is that they're trying to justify this almost as if it was like how Americans try to justify the rebel flag, right? Like, remember when they were saying like the rebel flag is only a sign of hate and that it could never be used to mean some kind of Southern pride or some kind of historical resemblance. But when Ukraine starts to do it, all of a sudden the news is like, well, it has historical significance because, the Russians, because the Nazis and the Russians, and they were caught in the middle of it. And it's like they're almost trying to justify it now, whereas you can't justify the rebel flag at all. If you have a rebel flag anywhere near you, or your family had a rebel flag, you are absolutely a racist. However, if the Ukrainian soldiers are wearing Nazi memorabilia, all of a sudden it's a pride thing. It's a symbol of fear to be struck. And I think it's funny that that's where the news's take is on this. So this is from Yahoo News. The relationship has become especially delicate because Russian President Vladimir Putin has falsely declared Ukraine to be Nazi state, a claim he has used to justify his illegal invasion. Ukraine has worked for years through legislation and military restructuring to contain a fringe far-right movement whose members proudly wear symbols steeped in Nazi history and espouse views hostile to leftist LGBTQ movements. I love how they bring LGBTQ and everything around the world now. As if everybody around the world gives a fuck about, how many gay people are in Ukraine? You probably count on one hand how many gay people are. I don't think that they think about those kind of things in Ukraine. I think they got a lot of other things on their brain than
like swimming from a dam.
Yeah, but some members of these groups have been fighting Russia since the Kremlin illegally annexed part of the Crimea region in Ukraine in 2014 and are now part of the broader military structure. Some regarded as national heroes, even as the far right remains marginalized politically. How do I say this word? Iconography? How do I say that word?
That's new.
Somebody help me. There's like a whole room of people in here that are smarter than me. Iconography, is that a word? How do you spell iconography? Thank you. Iconography of these groups, including a skull and crossbones patch worn by concentration camp guards and a symbol known as the Black Sun, now appears with some regularity on the uniforms of soldiers fighting on the front lines, including soldiers who say the imagery symbolizes Ukraine's sovereignty and pride. Nazi neo. This article just goes on and on, written almost to justify it, to make us empathize with these guys. However, our United States Special Forces could not wear any Crusader crosses as symbols at all during the. I just lost everybody and everything on my screen from Deadleg. I hope he's okay. But
I'm not sure what happened there. Sorry about that.
I just remember not being allowed to wear a Crusader cross because of that it could represent some kind of a hate or, I just think it's funny that we have a very high standard, as we should have a very high standard. But how, we're so very quick to empathize with everything that Ukraine does and question none of it. Maybe it's okay to disagree with Ukraine and just say that, like, they shouldn't be wearing that. However, we still have to give them trillions of dollars because they can't lose this war for some reason or another. I don't know. Again, I'm not a journalist. I'm just here to give you something to talk about over the weekend with your friends. What do you think? Do you think these symbols, Punisher skulls, things like that? I mean, is there a place for it in combat? Is there a place for it on the front lines?
So I don't back those symbols, but I would say there's something behind symbolism, because it's different. It's hard for like Americans. If we were getting ready to go into this war, like if we were getting ready to send U.S. troops over there, we're going to question why. We don't have a reason why we would go over there. But let's say Russia would attack the United States. Then we have something to rally behind. You have all this anti-Russia propaganda.
I think if the symbolism is that the Nazis, these particular Nazi units, kicked the Russians' asses in World War II, and we're wearing that same patch, the symbolism there is we're going to do exactly what this unit did to you back in the day. They might not be sympathizing, because, the Soviet Union was starving, and frankly, the Germans Hitler kind of saved that ass from Russia in a lot of instances.
But then again, it's our U.S. media trying to get involved and justify a conflict that we have nothing that we should be involved with. Not only that, if they're over there, they're over there reporting on what we're spending our money on. So if we're there, they could explain it. Okay, then let them explain it. But if you're not letting them explain it because you're taking them and putting the reporters in the hotels and saying, hey, you can't come out and report and do your thing, it doesn't. Then it starts to question, well, is it really behind the symbolism of we want to make sure that we do this to the Russians, or is it because they really want to support Nazis and they want to go with that movement?
And why is there such a huge neo-Nazi movement in Ukraine in the first place? I guess because historically, again, it goes back to like World War II and things like that. But I just think it's very fitting that our news media in 2023 would try to somehow justify this instead of just being quiet about it. You know what I mean? But it's kind of my thing is that we'll do anything to make Ukraine look good. Anything. We'll say anything and we'll do anything to protect them. And it's just the level of hypocrisy is just insane. We've got a UFO whistleblower. Before we get into the UFO whistleblower, just because we do have a special guest backstage and I don't want to keep him waiting anymore, let's go ahead and bring him on to talk about this whole golf thing, because that's something that we actually have an expert on, somebody who knows what they're talking about, where I'm just rambling on my opinion and my views on what's going on in the media. But we actually have an expert here, a golf expert. This is not only is he a golf expert, he's my brother, my little brother, all the way from Jacksonville, Florida. He has played professional golf.
A little bit, yeah.
He has caddied for many professional athletes. He's been on the LPGQ golf tour in Ireland, Scotland, Canada, and abroad.
Didn't go to Canada, but
you couldn't because you weren't vaccinated,
right? But yes, I caddied on the LPGA tour. Not
lesbian.
Nope. It's just the ladies professional golf
lesbian
tour.
Gay Association tour. What is LBG?
Apologize to all my LPGA players out there.
What does LPGA stand for?
The Ladies Professional Golf Association.
So it has nothing to do with gays.
No.
Oh man, I thought you were on like some kind of pro gay golf tour all this time. I thought when you're like, I'm on the LPGA thing, I was like, man, that's bold, dude. Cool. Like, hey, fuck yeah, dude. Like,
no, the LPGA tour is a very awesome tour. Okay. Unlike the WNBA, the girls are actually fun to watch.
Really?
Really good.
I didn't think golf was fun to watch at all, much less I couldn't imagine women's golf. I can't imagine women's golf being even more fun or any worse.
It's it's probably the only sport professionally where the ladies actually do have a chance at beating the dudes.
Oh, really?
Which happened
even when their tees aren't moved 30 feet forward?
I think it was in the Scandinavian event last year. They do a combined event, and a lady beat everyone.
Yeah, but was her tee box the same?
We against dudes. We two separate events, but the guys were sharing the same golf course, and we played a lot of the same tees. I mean, there was a couple of tees that were moved up, but I mean, they're pretty good out there.
Yeah, I would say any girl could beat me at golf.
I get beat by the girl I caddied for quite often. She comes out and plays with me a lot, and
so it's not like the women's soccer team that gets
she plays she plays the same tees as I do, and yeah, I get beat quite a bit. She'll claim I've never beaten her. I have a few times.
Okay.
She'll never say it, but in my mind, I did.
Okay. In your mind, you did.
Yeah, but no, they're really good. It's probably the funnest time I had was when I was caddying, because those girls are good.
Those girls are good. So you've got a lot of golf experience. You're in the golf. No, I think you have caddied at several different. You've been golf pro at several different places, prestigious places, like some of the most prestigious golf courses in the world, which is I always think is cool. Because a person like me that doesn't golf has gotten to golf some pretty amazing spots, and some people that golf their whole lives, and those are on their bucket list. I've got to set foot on those places. I feel pretty privileged and special. What is going on with the golf life right now? Like, what's going on with this golf merger? Break it all down for us, dumb cops, this student EMS workers who weren't good enough to be real PAs. The state troopers who were bullied in high school.
Gosh, the state troopers in Georgia are the worst. They just pull you over for going like 2 miles an hour over. It's the worst.
Yeah, we don't really need to go into how bad state troopers are. I think it's just like you're right. It's like saying like how bad Hitler was. We all know it. Like we don't have to like justify how bad Hitler was. We don't have to explain to the audience. Like we all know how bad state troopers are. And I'm only kidding. We love all of our responders.
Yeah, they're the best.
We love all those EMS. Listen, my life's been saved by a C student EMS worker. PA washout. I love all of them, and they're all incredible people. And the reason why I do the show was because I couldn't even cut it as a real cop. So it takes one to know one, and I'm that one. But for all of us out there that are just like me and who like this show, what's going on in the golf world, and why is it such a big deal?
Absolutely turned upside down. So the golf world yesterday just basically got completely turned upside down, which got turned upside down about a year ago when the Live Tour, which is backed by the Saudi government,
who are super rich
guys, decided that
they love golf,
and they do love golf. They have some events over there, and so they decided that they were going to create their own league, kind of breaking off the PGA Tour. They tried like a Formula One style, like team. You're paying players to come play as like a team of 5 or 4, whatever it is. So they're getting like guaranteed money. Whereas on the PGA Tour, it's not guaranteed. You kind of have to play.
So like if you're on a team and like James wins, then like he splits the money.
No,
with the team?
so there's individual and there's teams. So like they're playing for a winner gets $4 million for winning as an individual, and then if their team won like a combined score of the 4, like they won another extra. I don't know what the number was, but they won money as well.
Oh, cool.
So there was like a kind of team aspect, which was kind of cool. But they decided to break off.
And what made the Saudis want to create their own golf? Aside from the PGA, like why didn't they just?
So it kind of Greg Norman, who he played on the PGA Tour in the 80s, and
all I know of Greg Norman is that he has a hog.
Yeah, there is a beach photo of him walking down the beach.
Do we have that photo? Do you have that photo?
There it is. Fun fact: it's our mom's favorite golfer. Not sure if that's the reason why, but our mom has a big crush on Greg Norman. Yeah, he tried to. He played on the PGA Tour in the 80s and the 90s, and he tried to.
That's a hog. That thing is like a Kevin Costner hog.
He tried to break off or start some stuff on the PGA Tour back then. Got shut down, by the guys, earlier players. Like Davis Love and those guys, they weren't having any of it. And so he kind of got shunned by the golf world back then. So he and Phil Mickelson saw an opportunity to work with the Saudis to try to get back at the PGA Tour. I mean, that's probably the right term, but get back at the PGA Tour for what they thought the PGA Tour was doing wrong for quite some time.
When I think of PGA Tour, I think of Shooter McGavin.
Yeah, that's literally what it is. PGA Tour is a very selfish entity. They care about themselves. I mean, more so than the players, and it obviously showed yesterday with Jay Monahan coming out with a partnership after he completely bashed Live and even went on to say anybody who plays on the Live Tour supports terrorism and 9/11.
Yeah, I remember there's like a clip where it was like real emotional. Maybe we have the clip that do we have the clip of the guy who's just like bleeding heart? Like, I have friends who died in 9/11 and they were struck by the things. And now these players are crossing sides and playing playing for blood money. And now we fast forward 8 months later, and you're all hook, line, and sinker playing for blood money. So it's like everything that they said, they were just absolutely full of shit 8 months ago. That's what I'm taking from this.
No, yeah.
Can I play
100%.
that clip
Yeah,
really
play it,
fast?
play
I
it
think
real
we
quick.
have it.
Yep, here we go.
Go ahead.
There was a story that was first reported in the New York Post yesterday by Brian Wacker about a 9/11 coalition of families
I don't
and
have that
survivors
audio
of the
in my
2001
ears.
terrorist
Is it
attacks.
playing? Let's see.
9/11 Families United sent a letter to the representatives of Phil, Dustin, Bryson, Reed, and others, quote, expressing their outrage towards the golfers for participating in the new league and accusing them of sports washing and betraying the United States, end quote. And that's gotten a lot of steam over the last 24 hours. That story first reported again in the New York Post. How much did you talk to your players about the possible ramifications if they sign on with the new league?
Well, I talked to players. I've talked at a player meeting, and I've talked to a number of players individually for a long period of time. And I think you'd have to be living under a rock to not know that there are significant implications. And as it relates to the families of 9/11, I have two families that are close to me that lost loved ones. And so my heart goes out to them. And I would ask, any player that has left or any player that would ever consider leaving, have you ever had to apologize for being...
Listen, this is exactly like the whole the vaccine things. I love watching these vaccine clips where it's like, if you didn't get a vaccine, you're a murderer, and you should really not have friends that are vaccinated, and you should be thrown out all of the same shit. And then all of a sudden everybody's like, oh, you can still have a job.
Right.
You can still be in the military. This guy is saying, basically you're a terrorist.
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. And yesterday he called them, or today, I don't know, whenever he came out and said this one, but they went from terrorists to world-class investors is what he literally said today. I think
only
or yesterday
in
the players,
America.
Yeah. So these guys, these guys take money like Phil Mickelson, Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, all these guys. They took the millions of dollars to go play in the Saudi-backed league. They get shunned by the PGA Tour. The PGA Tour says, we're going to erase you from the history of golf. I mean, Cam Smith won the Players' Championship, which is where, I'm from Ponte Vedra, Florida. That's where they play the Players. Cam Smith lives in Ponte Vedra Beach. He practices at TPC Sawgrass, and he won the Players, which is the Players' Championship in golf is the PGA Tour's biggest event. PGA Tour doesn't have anything to do with the major championships like the Masters, the US Open. Those are all separate golf tournaments. But the Players' Championship is like their Super Bowl. So Cam Smith won. He's an Australian. He's friends with Greg Norman, who's also Australian. He leaves, wins the British Open. So he wins the next biggest event in the history of golf, one of the most prestigious events. And then a couple weeks later joins LIV, and the PGA Tour erases him. I played a lot. I caddied at Sawgrass. So I was there. All of his pictures on the walls were taken down. His parking spot that says 2022 Players Champ was taken down. The flag that they fly over for the year over the clubhouse was taken down. And they told him he couldn't practice there anymore. Was probably at that time, he was not number one in the world, but he was the best golfer in the world in that stretch. He probably got to number 3 or 2. I don't know what it was. But basically, Sawgrass said, see you later. You can't even come on our property anymore. And so, and they claim, oh, you're back in the money or whatever. And then all of a sudden yesterday, they announced in the morning, overnight, basically sitting there with the investor from Saudi Arabia and said, we've come together with a world-class investor, not a terrorist supporting group, a world-class investor, and said, this is going to be the greatest thing for golf. And basically it's, hi, I'm Jay Monahan. I took a $1 billion deal for the, Michael Scott paper company deal. And basically said, screw you to all the players who didn't take the money. I feel bad for Will Zalatoris. Got got offered like 130 million to go play. He's one of the younger superstars coming up, and the PGA Tour was like pressing super hard. Don't take the money. You'll never play here again. You probably won't even get to play in all the majors, which was a lie because Brooks Koepka just won the PGA Championship, which is a major championship, and has a season-ending back injury, not playing this year. And when you have back injuries in golf, you might not ever be competitive again. You play, but you might not be competitive. And now he lost out on $130 million just for the PGA Tour just to take whatever billions of dollars because deal. And now this dude might be screwed.
So he goes to take he gets a $130 million deal 8 months ago, and the PGA says don't take the deal. If you do, we're going to erase you. We're going to smear your name. We're going to crush you. He doesn't sign the deal. Doesn't get the $130 million. Then he gets hurt. And then 8 months later, the PGA signs the deal with the same people that they said, if you do it, you're going to get crushed. And that is literally the world wrapped up into one perfect story in 2023. Everything in Ukraine matches this story. Everything in the presidential elections, them comparing 9/11 and January 6th. All of this is the same shit. All the vaccine stuff, every single article that we've ever done on Last Call is wrapped up and perfectly explained into this exact golfing story. The hypocrisy is absolutely insane. What do you think it does for golf? I mean, does golf get more exciting going forward?
Oh yeah.
I mean, are you excited about this deal? Do you give a fuck about Saudis? I mean, here's the other funny thing is like, what kind of pro gay shit does the LPGA have going out this week? I mean, the PGA have going out this week, because I'm pretty sure the most anti-LBGQ TV LMNOP thing that you could ever do is do anything with the Saudis, because they fucking hate gays.
Right. Yeah.
Happy Pride Month, all you gay golfers. You won't be able to golf professionally because Saudi hates gays.
I don't.
Will gay people be allowed to golf in Saudi Arabia? Are gay people allowed to golf in Saudi Arabia? I had a teacher in the late 90s go to Saudi Arabia and then got into some trouble. She wasn't wearing a hijab correctly. She had some Christian ties, and I believe they caned her husband before they sent them back home. I have another friend who went to Saudi Arabia to do, he was a Green Beret, but he became a contractor, and he was doing some stuff, and his buddy blew a .02 walking home from a meeting. They stopped him on the side of the road, did a PBT on him. He blew a .02 walking on things. 3 weeks imprisoned, caned, and sent back to the United States. I actually got to chat with him after he got caned. This was a couple of years ago. So what happens when you go to play golf and they find out you may have had a little butt stuff? You did a little butt stuff the night before. What happens?
Well, some
Brittany Griner action.
One, I don't think they're gonna play necessarily in Saudi. I know they play a event in Saudi, but it's not like it's gonna be like
there's a bunch of Saudi events.
No, there might be like one. And I know, like, I believe the Saudis already back the LPGA Tour in the Aramco series, I would want to say. And I think there's
a lot of hypocrisy going on in Saudi Arabia too. Like, we hate women.
Right.
However, if you're a woman golfer,
and
we support you.
Right. So I don't necessarily think that's really an issue.
I'm just kidding. Saudi Arabian people don't hate women. They just
but as far as being excited for it, I mean, I am, because Brooks Koepka just won a major championship, almost won the Masters, playing in the Live, so he doesn't get to play on the PGA Tour, and so seeing him back on the PGA Tour hopefully next year, will be really cool. You're really seeing all these guys back together. Will be good for golf. I think the money they're going to be playing for is going to be just astronomical. Yeah. Like right now, some of these designated events they're playing for $20 million purses. They might double like to 40 million. Who knows? Jeez. But no, I think it is good for golf, and it sucks for everyone who didn't take the money, or like guys like Phil who are, getting that 250 million and getting to play on the PGA Tour again at some point. But yeah, I think golf coming back together is going to be good for the game. Am I like a fan of like Saudi Arabia? No. Like,
you look like a fan of Saudi Arabia.
Do I? Dang.
You're not telling me for 1 second you wouldn't kind of want to put your wife in a hijab, make her walk behind you a little bit?
No.
Not for 1 second?
No. No, I wouldn't.
She wouldn't be able to backtalk you.
No, I
the
wouldn't.
old bar and grill. Just sit there, better seen than heard, woman. Nah, it doesn't sound appealing at all.
No.
Not even for a second. Okay.
But Liv is, I'm not necessarily a fan of the format Liv has. It's more of like exhibition than it is like golf because it's shotgun start. They're not like playing in tee times. There's like music on every hole, which is cool. Like that's how golf is transforming, I guess. But I want to see them play against the best players in the world, the Scotty Schefflers versus the Koepkas and the Cam Smiths. Again, it's been kind of been like a weird year not seeing like Cam Smith compete for the Players Championship against Scotty Scheffler and Rory McIlroy. But yeah, and then to watch the CNN of golf, which is the Golf Channel, just absolutely meltdown yesterday.
Yeah.
Brandel Chambly and Eamon Lynch, who I'm still waiting for their resignations to quit after they basically said they would leave golf if the PGA Tour would ever, bow down to the Saudis. And I hate those two guys with a passion. They're the worst. And but watching them melt down yesterday was a lot of fun. But yeah, overall, it's good for golf. I don't know how the schedule is going to look going forward. I don't know if the team aspect of it exists much longer or how they work that out. In the end, the PGA Tour had to change, and it did, and it basically didn't want to, but it got forced to. And a lot of the players are super, super mad.
Now, do they bring fighting back to the PGA? We're going to see more fights on the green. We're going to see a little bit.
That would be a cool aspect. They could add that into. I know, like at one of the coolest tournaments they play in Phoenix. One of the holes is like designed like a football stadium, and it's like triple decked, and like people are yelling, screaming at them while they're hitting their golf ball, and like if they suck, they'll like all throw beers onto the green.
Yeah,
and
see that's where golf becomes interesting.
Like I think Joel Damon and Harry Higgs took their shirts off.
Yes,
and that hole once.
Talking about.
It's golf.
Is this a win for Trump or a win for Biden?
It's a win for Trump because Trump said the PGA Tour is disloyal to you players and everyone who's not. Now I'm like paraphrasing this, but he basically said like all the players who aren't taking the money, it's dumb on you because the PGA Tour is going to turn on you or something like that.
Oh,
he literally tweeted this like a year ago, and he literally was right. The PGA Tour literally became disloyal to all the players. I mean, guys like Wesley Bryan came out and said, "I'll never trust the PGA Tour again."
How could you?
Now,
how could you if they stopped you from signing $130 million deals? Only to take $1 billion deal 8 months later. How could you ever trust them again? It's just like, do you remember when they were like, we'll never take Trump's vaccine and we are going to put an end to Trump's vaccine. And literally 4 months later, they're like, you have to get the vaccine. You must get the vaccine. So you for a whole year told us that Trump was trying to come up with some crazy wackadoodle vaccine that was going to kill everybody. It was going to be damaging. And I mean, they used to go back, they've hidden those clips, but you can still find them of them just saying horrendous things about the Trump vaccine. Literally 4 months later, they're like, oh, this has been tested and, it's 99% effective. It's the same shit. It is literally the script for the 2020s.
Yeah. But yeah, look, there's that's the stadium.
So 99% of you are audio listeners on Thursdays. And only about 0.02% of you watch this on YouTube. But if you are watching on YouTube, you can see the football stadium hole that he's referring to. It looks a lot of fun. It makes makes golfing look way cooler to me.
And there's like a bunch of people yelling and throwing beers when they like make hole-in-ones, and they boo people when you miss the green, which is wild. People they'll put on like I've seen when Kobe Bryant passed away, a lot of players wore Kobe Bryant jerseys when they played the hole, or Arizona State jerseys because it's right next to Arizona State.
Right.
And but yeah, it's a lot of fun hole. But yeah, I think golf is overall going to be better. It's just funny looking at all the hypocrisy of like the players. Like Rory McIlroy came out this morning. It was quiet all day yesterday, and he's like the face of the PGA Tour and kind of the face of the PGA Tour against Liv. And like he came out and was like, "Oh, I think the money is going, when it goes in the right place, it's good for golf. And it's like, oh, it's like when the money's going where you want it to go. Like you were calling it blood money.
Yeah.
A year ago. And all of a sudden now when it's blood money's going in where you want it, like
Right.
it's all good. It's like, it's just crazy how like
the hypocrisy.
Yeah. And it's just like,
insanity.
it is. I don't know how, like, obviously I've never played on the PGA Tour or so I don't know like the ins and outs of what all was wrong with the PGA Tour, but when you got guys like Hendrik Stenson, who's a European guy, the Ryder Cup is like one of the most prestigious events, and you want to like to be a captain of a Ryder Cup team that's Europe versus America in a golf tournament. That's like a huge special. Like that's like that's something that you don't turn down. And Hendrik Stenson gave up his captaincy of the European squad to join Live, because they said if you join Live, you forfeit your spot as a captain. And so to me, it's like, man, what was wrong with the PGA Tour to where Hendrik Stenson gives up, you know, one of the most prestigious honors in all of golf, you know? And so it's like watching all that, you know, Phil Mickelson basically like getting drugged through hell, you know, and he's one of the greatest golfers of all time to go join Live. Something had to be wrong with the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know, you know, a little bit about it, but you know, I think golf wins overall. It sucks that it has to be this way.
I like, how do people just not like completely turn their backs on the PGA at this point? Like, is there a way to turn your back on the PGA? Is there a way for these players to get back at the PGA?
I mean,
for being so, you know, because right, I think I saw a tweet or something, and again, I don't know anything about golf, so, but I guess this commissioner said that like he knows he's going to be called a hypocrite, and he knows that people are going to have a problem with it, and he understands that, but he had to do what was right for golf. I'm like, bitch, just come out and say it. Like, yeah, I know they're going to call me a hypocrite, but I'm rich, bitch. Like,
right.
I got billions of dollars.
I mean, that's essentially what it is. I mean, the PGA Tour.
Call me a hypocrite. I don't care.
I mean, I watched his interview this morning they're playing the whole, we got to make sure we look good. And, you know, he's playing the whole, you know, we're in charge. The PGA Tour is still going to be in charge. We just have a world-class investor that's helping back for a better PGA Tour. But the PGA Tour, I'm still in charge, you know, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, but are you really? Like, you know, like, why, if you're still in charge, then why'd you have to do it like so secretively? And you didn't even tell Tiger Woods, who's, you know,
what is Tiger saying about it?
I mean, he's been very quiet. He hasn't said anything yet, but like Rory and Tiger have been like the forefront of the players committee, which is like the players, they have a committee.
All Tiger's prostitutes are now wearing hijabs
at Perkins.
What did Portnoy say about it? I know he said something.
Yeah.
Barstool Sports always has something to say about it.
Yeah.
That, like, do we have anything from Barstool Sports on this matter?
This is why you should never lie. People like the truth, and they'll respect you for saying it. This commission of the PGA comes out looking like the biggest scumbag, all ranting and raving about 9/11, only to merge with Live an hour later. What a piece of shit. End quote.
Yeah.
Dude, I love Portnoy, man. Like, what a piece of shit, he says.
But yeah, I don't know how Jay Monahan, who Portnoy's talking about, I don't know how Jay Monahan survives it. I mean, there's players that said that as well. They're like, you know,
like, are we talking like a plane crash, like
did,
like the investors of Donald Trump this week,
right.
who mysteriously fell asleep on a plane trip back from Florida and then crashed? How many people do you know in this world, really quick? This is my favorite question to ask anybody. How many people do you think you've ever come in contact with in your whole life?
I don't know.
Tens of thousands?
Probably.
How many have died in a plane crash?
None.
Okay.
Yeah. Wild.
How many celebrities? Like, how many celebrities that were tied to like sex crimes and everything like that? Or like,
those are the only people I know.
Any kind of like big investors.
Kobe Bryant.
You got the R. Kelly, not the R. name.
Now
TLC the girl from TLC.
Kennedys.
Yeah.
You got the people who were due to sign on the Malaysia flight for the Rothschild family. That whole debacle. I mean, just like all these like very important people tend to die.
It's crazy.
But anyway, keep going. Sorry.
But yeah, I mean, they had an emergency players meeting in the Canadian Open this week, and when Jay Monahan flew out there to it. I guess somebody yelled like we need a new commissioner or like we need new leadership. I don't know what it was, but supposedly there was a standing ovation when that was said. So you've got
what was the one tweet that went out about that meeting in Canada?
There was a bunch of
Monahan meet us on the 9th.
Oh yeah. Somebody was like, and actually they have like a sign on the door that says players meeting only, and it's on the door, and then somebody sharpied in live, LIV players meeting. But yeah, somebody I think I don't remember who it was. Somebody posted like, Jay, the meeting got changed to 9 p.m. behind the 9th green.
Which is a great Happy Gilmore reference, and it made us watch Happy Gilmore last night because
but yeah, it's I overall I think it's gonna be good for golf. It sucks just the way it happens, but
TJR here in our live chat says Liv is soon to get a large sponsorship from Target, Bud Light, Budweiser. This is coming from the Budweiser marketing VP, that they're going to be sponsored by Target and Bud Light going forward. I don't see the Saudis putting up with that shit. So and that goes to say too, is like, well, if the Saudis now own part of the PGA, like what implications does that have as far as sponsors like Bud Light or people who are into this trans activist, gay rights thing? I mean, if your money's coming from Saudi says we don't like that, then you have to stop. I mean, that's the problem with selling out, with a podcast, is if you start taking big advertisers, which is why we're so happy to partner with GhostBed and Manscaped, because never once have they really come at us with, you say this or report on it this way. Whereas the advertising firm that we were with over a year ago, we were walking on eggshells. I mean, I'm not going to go back into which sponsors left us for what we said. That's all, you can go back and listen to former episodes and figure that out. But, now that the Saudis basically own the PGA, what do you think it means for stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be a crazy few months, because I think that's a lot of people's questions is like, who owns who really? Because like the PGA Tour says we own them, but the Saudis, no, clear. From what I've read, the Saudis own it, but who knows? Yeah, I don't know how. Like there was nothing, like literally other than them saying, "Oh, we've merging with Live or PIF, whatever it's called." There was literally nothing said about like what it looks like or how this is going to work. Like everyone's still in the dark. I think the PGA Tour is still in the dark. I think it's still Jay Monahan got a huge check. PGA Tour got a huge check, and they're like, "Oh, we'll just figure this out later." But yeah, like I don't know. Because I mean the PGA Tour, I think when it comes to like the PGA Tour has been like really good as far as like not ruining their brand by like having like crazy like players doing crazy things or like
a whole bunch of prostitutes and strippers.
Other than like the Tiger Woods thing, but Tiger was such a big name.
Like John Daly, like banging a mom and daughter on the third hole.
Yeah, but see, like not if you're not a golfer, like you don't probably know John Daly, and like, but Tiger Woods was such a big brand of himself that like it's like Michael Jordan. Like if Michael Jordan came out with a bunch of prostitutes,
I'd
whatever,
say if he
you wouldn't
was
say the NBA is terrible. You just say the Jordan brand. That's like Tiger Woods kind of.
Yeah, if Tiger Woods is Michael Jordan, then John Daly is who's the dude with the wild hair?
Dennis Rodman.
Dennis Rodman.
Oh yeah. That would make sense.
So I think more people know John Daly than you think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure. Yeah, but like, they're not looking at John Daly's stupidity and saying the PGA Tour. The PGA Tour has done a good job about like avoiding those, or like for example, there's like rumors that like certain players will do certain things that involve like drugs or whatever, and the PGA Tour will just play it off as, oh, we suspended them, but they won't. No one will know.
Yeah. And
it's kind of like, or they'll just say he took a leave of absence, but really he got suspended or something like that. But like those are like hearsay type things. But this is like gonna be like, so yeah, I don't know what the PGA Tour is gonna do, what it's gonna look like. I doubt Live exists now that the Saudis got into the PGA Tour. I think Greg Norman probably goes away. I think they use him as a pawn to get where they wanted, which will be funny because he'll now be kicked out of two. He'll be basically used as a pawn twice and not get to see it. But yeah, it's good for golf.
So you think it is good for golf?
I mean, it sucks that the money's coming from where it's coming from. Like, I don't agree with like their like rights.
It's like, why do you need more than 20 million?
Like,
like, I mean, for the, I don't know, for the benefit of the, like, for just saying, okay, well, like, on principle,
right?
Let's just stick with our 20 million. We don't need 40 million purses,
right? And they claim it's all like we're growing the game, but I'm like, no, you're growing your pockets because like the LPGA Tour, like the LPGA Tour, they're playing for like rocks. Like they're not playing for any, like the winner on the LPGA Tour, or like the winner gets like what 11th place on the PGA Tour would get if they won. And so like, you know, and then you got like feeder tours like the Latin Tour and the Canadian Tour, who are playing for 150 grand, you know, and those guys going down there are spending more money to play on the tour than they are winning. You know, it's like baseball, hockey, and basketball. You know, those lower leagues, the G leagues, the whatever, the minor league hockey and minor leagues for baseball, like those guys are still getting paychecks. Granted, it's not much, but they're still getting paychecks. Whereas on the in golf, you know, I have to pay an entrance fee. I have to pay for my flight to, you know, wherever, and then I miss the cut, I make $0.
Yeah.
You know, and there's like, so, and it'll cost me $100 grand to go play a full year, you know, on a bigger tour, like where you're traveling in other countries.
Yeah.
And you're not making, even if you win a lot or place well, you're not going to make enough money. And so but the PGA Tour is like, oh, we're about growing the game. Yeah. So we're going to make our purses, you know, $20 million, which is fine and all. Like you want to have a reason to get to the top, but like, you know, I think they could probably make the smaller tours a little bit more
lucrative.
Yeah. And because there's guys out there playing. I've played against some guys that are phenomenal golfers that can play on the PGA Tour, and if they were on the PGA Tour, they would keep their cards. The problem is, you know, they don't have the means to get there, you know, right. And that's where and then I think the PGA Tour could help the LPGA Tour in partnership, in create something better on the LPGA side.
Does the LPGA follow the PGA? Like, it would make more sense to have it in the same spot, since you have all the fans there. Then you would have more fans at the LPGA.
But the thing though is like the golf courses are just different.
I gotcha.
They play. I think the LPGA golf courses might be even harder because they're usually narrower. Not quite as long, but like if they want to grow the game, I think they can grow the game, and that's like you can be an LPGA player and not be able to practice at TPC Sawgrass, like, which is home of the PGA Tour. Like that's crazy. Like we've got some of the best players in the world in Jacksonville, and they like it's not like they can just go and practice at the TPC Sawgrass, which is like one of the greatest practice facilities in the world.
Yeah,
for professional golfers. So I think money talks, and they're just going to put whatever they want in their pockets, and they'll just claim they're just growing the game.
We got some more breaking news going on to this next article. Thank you, James. You can hang out with us too. You don't have to go backstage if you want. But this is and I'd love to know what you think about UFOs, because you're also a scholar when it comes to.
I do have a degree, and you don't.
Biblical theology. The Pentagon undermines. So we had a whistleblower come out about a day or so ago saying that he has evidence that he wanted to show Congress and proof that there is non-human technical vehicles called spacecraft that have been recovered, and there's actually a recovery team, and he was going to go out there. Now, as of 2 hours ago, the Pentagon has undermined the whistleblower's claim about a secret government program that he said has been recovering a crashed UFOs and reverse engineering their technology. David Charles Grouch, a decorated Air Force veteran, told News Nation that they are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles call it spacecraft, if you will, non-human exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed. He says, quote, well, naturally, when you recover something that's either landed or crashed, sometimes you encounter dead pilots. And believe it or not, as fantastical as it sounds, it's absolutely true. A spokesperson for the Department of Defense told Fox News Digital in an email on Tuesday that there is no verifiable information to substantiate his claims. Guy was the mouthpiece of the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, a section of the DoD tasked with investigating and identifying unidentified anomalous phenomena. Government created phase used instead of UFO. It's a phrase instead of UFOs, but to date, the AARO has not discovered any verifiable information to substantiate claims that any programs regarding the possession or reverse engineering of extraterrestrial materials has existed. What I find interesting is that they're not using the name that Grouch used. Grouch was a combat officer in Afghanistan. He was in the National Reconnaissance Office as their representative to Congress, Unidentified Air Phenomena Task Force from 2019 to 2021. He filed a whistleblower complaint to Congress and the Intelligence Community Inspector General on classified information that he insists proves the recoveries of partial fragments and intact vehicles by the U.S. government, its allies, and defense contractors. This is all according to a report here. When I first saw this a few days ago, he had a name for the task force. Do you know what that name was, Deadleg?
Confirmed the existence of exotic materials. I'm looking through the one article here.
But he called it something, that it was a retrieval task force, a retrieval team. I'm not seeing that word being thrown around in this article at all. And this is the newest article that's come out. Now, he would not disclose the evidence to News Nation because he said it has to do with national security and there's some implications there. But he goes through this whistleblower process because he wants to show Congress that we have retrieved alien crafts. And I mean, what he's saying here is that there's not human, but extraterrestrial life that he's recovering. I mean, that's what he's implementing here. What do you think about that, Deadleg? I mean, you think he's full of shit? Is this guy writing a book? What's going on?
I mean, this is a screen grab from some of the stuff that he's turned over, evidently. And I mean, if you can't identify it and we can't,
but I think this goes beyond identifying. I think what he's saying is that they have recovered alien space forms. I mean, he says, as fantastical as it sounds, it's true.
There was a guy that came out in the 90s, and they've been trying to disprove his stuff for years. And he described things that was supposedly at Area 51 this is where we take all this stuff that we were studying. He was part of a team that was his job was like to reverse engineer the gravity matter, how they the propulsion, how they do that. So he's not access to everything, but he described like over 10, I think 15 or 17, I don't know the exact number, but more than one craft that they had bodies of these creatures. He described some like when you start to try to discredit things, you start to pull apart like bits and pieces. Like there's no way this could be real. There's no way. So he starts describing technology from back in the 80s that wasn't public, but how they had handprint scanners that was able to understand your handprint to know who you were based off your handprint, because each bone and the density and the distance, it's unique. It's almost more unique than your fingerprint. So that's how they were able to get into these places. This was in the 80s. So we had no idea that we had computers or anything, that technology that could do that at the time. And he talked about it in the 90s and everybody tried to discredit it. Well, it's come out later on that we had the patents on that stuff and it was released and all that. Like they released all that. So it takes enough time for people to back this stuff up. We're just now in the age of technology where we can back it up much faster. We can find stuff out much faster. We can call BS on stuff much faster. So the fact that it took him that long, the Department of Defense that long to come out and say, well, maybe they're trying to get their ducks in the order to try to discredit as much as possible. That makes me believe that there's some credibility to it. Why? Why would someone with such a military career? Why would they come out with it?
Because he's writing a book.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. That would be my first guess. That, or he knows something that we don't. But Project Bluebeam, which is one of my favorite episodes that we did on Night Shift, where I presented my case for Project Bluebeam, which is a phenomenal case, by the way. It says that you have to have this uptick in UFO sightings, and to be able to kick off Project Bluebeam, you've got to have, you've got to have UFOs and sightings in the news. And even going back to Independence Day, it uses the blue beam. I mean, just that conspiracy is phenomenal. It's so fun. But really, in the last 3 years, the last piece of the puzzle, the Project Bluebeam, is what's going on, which is UFOs being in the news. I mean, this is headline news on Fox News today, as of 2 hours, breaking news. Headline: more UFO shit. We saw the other headline just a few months ago, back in March, where it was like the Congress comes out and will not deny UFOs or something like that. It was like the headline news was basically saying
there was some video that was leaked, and they wouldn't.
The video was leaked, and they cannot deny that it's not extraterrestrial, and just using things like that in the media out of context, of course. And we covered how out of context it was, but the fact that they use it to trick you into. James, you've got a lot of opinions on life outside of this worldly, earthly realm. What's your take on aliens and UFOs, and the fact that we've heard so much about aliens and UFOs over the last 2 years?
Yeah.
Do you believe in the existence of aliens?
I don't necessarily believe in aliens.
I want to believe.
It's one of those where it's like for me, in my religious beliefs, aliens don't fit in necessarily. I would say it goes on a super spiritual level of, they could be. So Satan has full reign of all over the earth.
Right.
And, I think that could be the UFO could be demons going back and forth.
So you're going that route.
I don't
now.
necessarily.
Will they travel in a space vehicle though?
We don't know.
Demons.
I mean, I'm not saying that that's necessarily the route I go, but that's a route that there's a theory out there. I had a golf coach in college who was a huge alien guy.
All right.
And he told me that he witnessed in Nazca, Peru.
Okay.
He lived in Nazca. He was he said he watched an alien get out of a spaceship.
What?
And had he had an alligator kind of
the lizard people.
Right. And he said, and he's telling me this as dead truth.
Okay.
And he was like, I watched him cut my friend's fingers off with lasers.
What happened to his friend?
He just said he just had no fingers. And he's like, I can show you my friend who has no fingers. I never saw his friend.
Stop.
But I was just like,
what's the friend's story?
I never talked to the friend, but supposedly they say the same thing. And I'm like, dude, when you're in Nazca in Peru, how many drugs are you doing?
Yeah, what was the ayahuasca?
Yeah, what was going on there? But he's a big alien guy. But yeah, for me, I mean, I don't know if
I don't think there's aliens.
I don't think there's aliens. It just doesn't fit.
And even if there were, I don't think they'd probably too much give a fuck about us.
Now, I mean, our God's a big God, and I wouldn't say
probably like an anthill.
I wouldn't say that anything's past his meaning, but I don't.
I also, I wouldn't put it past God, the creator,
right?
To just be like, yeah, this is the perfect thing that I've created, and I'm solely entertained by that.
I mean, an ant has purpose, so that unidentified flying object might have purpose. I don't know.
It's a cool take, but I think it's he says if aliens are real, I don't care. What if Jesus went to multiple planets?
It doesn't. That doesn't. For me, the Bible is pure and Scripture is all real.
Just because he doesn't put something in it doesn't mean that.
I don't necessarily believe that he would. I mean, now again, I'm not saying that it's out of the realm of God doing that. He, obviously do whatever he wants in his perfect universe.
Could it be possible that God doesn't want us to know everything?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, why would like?
I mean, because there are like multiple stories of giants. Like I've done a lot of research on giants, and giants existed.
Oh yeah, the Nephilim and all that.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot.
But
of
if there was giants, then there would have to be fairy people as well, right? Because
like
a
what,
giant
regular
would
human
see you
being?
as a fairy.
Sure, but I don't know if a fairy would be what they would say. Like
Right,
I don't
but
think
like-
the meaning of what we
But
think.
like,
of
think about the
fairies are
perspective
would
of a
be that.
giant. The perspective of a giant would be like, man, there's these little people that walk underneath the trees.
Yeah, I mean,
and you'd be like, no, it's impossible. Just like we think that there are little people that walk underneath bushes and flowers. You'd be like, there's nothing that small out there. But if there's giants, they could look down on us and be like, can you believe it that there's actually human life that's like ours? It has our form, but it walks underneath the trees. Like that's crazy.
I mean,
and they could not even have a perspective of what.
prior to the flood. I mean, prior to the flood, the whole idea of everyone's mindset, I mean, would be nothing like it would be today. So like we're thinking of what it would be in our own worldly view, and their worldviews would not even be close to what our worldview would have been. If that makes sense. So like, you know, I mean, a lot of people believe that the prior to the flood, civilization was at a far greater peak than where it is now. Prior to the flood, I mean, that is stuff that people believe, but their worldviews will be a whole different than our worldviews today. So it's hard to say like what they would think. You know, that was just a normal way of life back then. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and if God wanted us, I like Detzlav Act Man Carry, which, by the way, Detzlav, you and I are going to have a conversation offline because you've been a follower for years now, and I've never understood your name, Detzlav Act Man Carry. But he says, are you serious? God specifically said, do not eat of this tree because he didn't want us to know everything.
Right.
But we did it anyway. So if he literally didn't want us to know everything, he could, in theory, not want us to know about aliens or some other stuff.
Very true.
Anyway, interesting stuff. I was like, do you like alien?
Hey, it goes back to the hypocrisy because Adam and Eve said we would never eat of that tree, yet they did.
We would never take that blood money. Yeah. But now we're taking the blood money.
Yeah.
Do you like to read about aliens, or do you feel icky about aliens? Like, what's your?
No, I one of my favorite shows on History Channel is Ancient Aliens. Like, I find that stuff to be just extremely like interesting. Mostly because I just like to listen to other people's takes on it. But have I ever been convinced? No. But I would read about aliens. It's especially the ones where they say like they use dinosaurs and aliens in World War II. I love those takes.
Oh
yeah, like a guy riding a dinosaur on the D-Day or some alien shooting lasers at people. Like those are the ones I like.
That is so rad. I would want to be the guy on the Velociraptor,
right?
Just going on and slinging some death. There was somebody said something about let's see here. It was in the chats. I like to give the laugh chats at the end of this thing a minute. God is slowly revealing his secrets, our DNA.
Well, I'm not sure what happened to Eric. That's kind of weird because we still have his brother, but not Eric. So people are in the chats. UPP's in the chats tonight. Armory's in the chat.
I'm here, guys.
In the chat.
I'm here.
John's here. Bosco's here.
Here to save last call, guys.
Ashley's here.
Eric Tansey has disappeared. James, do you see him still in the room with you, or is he actually vanished? James, can you hear me? Can anyone?
And now we have UPP.
I'm also here.
Everyone's here because Eric's gone.
Clear. What happened?
Now he might be back, but he doesn't have a camera. We record this live, so if you're listening or watching this later on, this is a live recording, and we have the boss man back himself.
All of us are here now.
Gosh,
I got a guy cleaning my toilets.
John is here. John, chime in for us. This is a special. After hours last call. I'm just going a little bit longer, but you are a huge alien guy. What is your take on this UFO whistleblower?
Well, first of all, I liked James's take about Satan having reign all over the earth. I think anything that spiritual, whether or not you want to call it like poltergeist or things like that, or whatever. I think that whether it's science or spirituality, I think that Satan has an interest in getting you to believe in something other than God. So if you if you believe in ghosts, if you believe in poltergeists, if you believe in aliens, if you only believe in science, Satan has an interest in promoting those things because, and I'm not anti-science, but he wants you to believe in those things as an alternative to believing in God. Everyone has something inside of them where they want to believe in something bigger than themselves, right? So it's either like the planets or the DNA inside you, it's ultimate outer space, it's ultimate inner space, or it's the stuff that we just can't explain with our limited perception, whether that's, you know, vampires, poltergeists, or whatever. I think, you know, if you're getting phone calls from your dead grandmother or the Ouija board's working, it's because Satan has an interest in getting you to believe in a spirituality that's apart from God. And I don't think that we encounter anything on the supernatural realm that isn't evil. I don't believe that there's such a thing as a benevolent ghost. I know that's pretty far mission drift from aliens, but I think the government's up to a lot of stuff with aliens. I think they have an interest in keeping us from knowing what's going on. When I did that alien episode for you, Night Shift, I kind of broke down about how at the end of World War II, the Russians had the bomb and we needed a reason to keep spending money. And, you know, we went into a Cold War in which we were spending money like we were in an actual war, and yet we weren't actually, you know, having combat. So I think the military industrial complex has reasons to do things. And they also have legitimate secrets like the stealth bomber, you know, that was kept secret for a long time. And they need to do those things because whatever the common person knows, our enemies also know too. Eric, are you still there?
Eric died again.
Eric's dead.
So I'm also a Christian, and I never joined last call besides one episode ever, but I had to join in on this because I was watching it in the background.
Yeah.
My wife has a theory, and I commented this, and so I don't actually believe in aliens. I don't care if they're real, whatever. It doesn't really affect my life. But her theory is that there were gay men in like the 60s or 70s when even earlier when all of these claims of aliens like abductions took place. And these people have been probed and have to explain being gone for weeks at a time. It's just drugs and gay sex. And obviously she was just joking when she said that, and it's just a joke. But it honestly doesn't really sound that far-fetched to me.
I know if I do a whole bunch of drugs and I do a bunch of gay stuff, like some butt stuff, I'm going to say aliens took me.
There's drugs, but also there's neurological things that you can have where you can go into syncope episodes and things like that. And, you know, you can go extended times where you have amnesia and disconnection and fugue states and things like that. So there's psychological reasons apart from drugs, but also when you have those things, drugs makes it a lot worse.
What you're saying, Elijah, is that if you're gay, you're going to get abducted by aliens. That's what
pretty much. Yeah. Yep.
Maybe they do that as a kindness, Tansey. I don't know if maybe you could see where I'm going with that, or do I have to spell it out? That's kind of gross, but
I want nothing more than to be probed by an alien.
I just, you know, there's maybe some people would be less bothered by it. I don't know.
Speaking of aliens, my computer is being abducted. Somehow we've been kicked from the internet twice. So I guess they don't want us talking about aliens on the interwebs. Do you have any opinions on anything else we've talked about today while you're here? I know that you and I are doing a show. Is that right? You and I are doing a show after this.
Yeah, right after this, when this show is over, it's magically Thursday night or Saturday morning. We're going to go ahead and do Com Center. We've actually got another person kind of waiting in the wings, a surprise guest who's going to help us. So
we can get out of here then. We're going to close out on Night Shift. Thank you, James, for coming on with us today and breaking down all of the news. I'm glad that you're here visiting me in North Carolina. We're going to have we're going to the Special Operations Museum.
So looking forward to
Vietnam tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
You know,
watch Elkin drop in on a huge bowl. That was awesome.
Yeah, follow him on Instagram. It's at Elkin Tansey. Yeah. On Instagram, you can watch my 5-year-old son just absolutely murder a bull at 5 years old. Do you manscape? Do you beard trim?
I do have a Manscaped.
Nice.
I do.
Nice.
I'm very lazy at it. You can see.
I like that. Do you use the crop preserver?
I do.
Keeps your balls from sticking to your leg. That is my favorite part about the Manscaped 4.0 package.
Came in the package, yeah.
It's the best. It keeps your balls literally from sticking to your side of your leg, which I think is an ingenious invention.
Great for golf.
Great for golf. So anyway, guys, thank you, ghostbed.com, and thank you, Manscaped. Thank you, James. Thank you, John. Thank you, Deadleg. Thank you, underpaid producer. And from everybody here at Last Call of the Day on the Failure Stop Podcast channel. Until next time, guns up. Giddy up,
Giddy
folks.
up.